everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Nerds After Dark podcast. I'm Cole Swanson. With me are two of my brothers, Ben Swanson and Josh Sterling. Trent is on vacation this week, having fun at the beach, so he will not be here. So it'll just be us three reacting to the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, episode 3 that released on Amazon just a few days ago. Spoiler warning, as always, this is for individuals who have already watched the show. We're going to be talking about a lot of spoilers and maybe predictions for the future. So this is your official spoiler warning. Good evening. As always, we're recording at night. We are Nerds After Dark because during the day we have to be regular people. But once the kids go to bed, we can nerd out about Lord of the Rings. So to start,
it's time to work on that slogan a little bit.
Yeah. That's the best I got for the time being. So first, we are going to give our 1 to 10 ranking of the episode. And I didn't tell the guys this. Last time we did love-hate. I'm not going to put them in that binary position today. So we're going to just do ranking 1 to 10 with one sentence of why you give that ranking. Why don't we start with Ben this time? 1 to 10, one sentence.
6.4. Lower this time because I forgot everything that happened until I read a summary today. It was fine, but not that memorable.
All right, Josh.
I completely disagree. I thought it was a 9 out of 10. It was my favorite so far. I actually just watched it, so it's very fresh in my mind. I might start doing that before every episode because I feel like I'm like hyped up, ready to talk about it because I just watched it. But yeah, 9 out of 10. It was really exciting. A lot going on.
That's a great idea. I don't know if I could keep from watching it for a week because I watched it like right when it came out. And then the way we record, since we, like I said, have lives during the day, it's difficult for us to record this in a timely fashion. So I don't know if I could hold off, but I'm definitely more excited about it right after I record than I am now. So my ranking for right after I watched it might be different than now, but I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, a little lower than last time, similar to Ben. Maybe because of less action, I don't know. But there were many pieces that I really enjoyed, but maybe
I feel like there was more action.
Okay, well, we can debate, Josh. We can debate. But I mean, like in the premiere, it had like that first bit with like, I don't know, didn't it have armies and things of that nature, and then the fighting the troll. I mean, this one had the warg. Did it have any other action other than the warg?
There was that time that the stranger got stuck in a tent. That was a little harrowing.
Okay, Ben's being sarcastic, but there was Halbrand beating up the dudes in the alley. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Going Mortal Kombat on that guy's arm.
I know. Yeah, we'll have to get into that.
I guess like the action was it was more intense. Like the recap of at the beginning of the first episode where it was kind of telling the story of the war was very quick. You weren't like seeing a full fight scene.
True.
But I think the only full like semi-fight scene we got in the first 2 episodes was when is it Theo? The son Theo.
Yeah.
When him and his mom fought the orc that went to their house. But this, like when the elves were fighting the orcs, when they were digging the tunnels, was like a full fight scene. It felt like to me. So maybe, and it's pretty graphic. Some of the people that got killed there, but
true. I did like that. And we'll talk about the issues I had with the work scene. But we're gonna start out. We're gonna try to take it piecemeal to try to stay organized. So first, we're going to hit the Galadriel Halbrand storyline. That's kind of the order of it in the show as well. And then the Harfoots, and then the Arondir storyline. So, Josh, why don't you tell us very quickly, just so briefly, what happened with Galadriel and Halbrand, and then we'll react to pieces of it.
Yeah, so they made it to their destination, which we come to find is the Isles of, what is it?
Numenor.
Y'all gonna have to help me. Numenor, yes. And they are presented in front of what seems to be the king and queen. We find out that the Numenorians are not friendly with elves, and Galadriel is set on trying to figure out how to get out of Numenor. and that's what's going to end up being the big conflict. So I'll leave it at that. What were y'all's thoughts or initial reactions to, I guess, just Numenor in general and how they portrayed it?
Yeah, I was very impressed with Numenor. I mean, I didn't feel super CGI. I mean, obviously it was majority CGI. I felt good about it. When I saw the huge statues of the men, I definitely was reminiscent of Gondor, which was pretty cool. The city was huge, so I guess it's the island of Numenor. I don't even know what that city itself is called, but I was pretty impressed.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, that was one of the highlights for me. I thought they did a great job with it. Not cheesy at all. Had a very kind of ethereal sense. Kind of took me back to the original Lord of the Rings movies. You could tell there was an elven touch to it, elven influence, and I think that was accurate to the text. And yeah, I thought that was very well done. You could see the budget shining through there.
So
Definitely,
the elves. I mean, Galadriel kind of makes reference to it, but they built the whole thing, or they just assisted.
That I don't recall very well. I haven't gotten back to that part in the book, but I think that they assisted. The Valar raised the island up out of the depths for the men who were faithful to the cause to live on, and for a while, I think the elves kind of came freely back and forth to it, and helped to teach them things, but eventually the relationship soured, as they allude to in the show.
Yeah, I think Halbrand asks how men like him made this, right? And he said something like that, and she's like, men like you didn't make this. Elves did. I guess the reference was to elves did, or maybe Numenorians or whatever it was.
Right. I think my impression was that she was referencing that the Numenorians are not like him, hinting, because they don't really get at that in the show.
I definitely felt that, even as someone that doesn't know a lot of the lore or the background more than what you've explained to me on the last show, but you could sense that these men, although they were men, were not the same as, is it Halbrand?
Halbrand, yeah.
Halbrand. So I thought they did a good job of that.
I'm trying to think so what did you think of Galadriel's response to the queen just being all like sassy, like, I'm just not gonna even give pleasantries so I can get back to Middle Earth. I'm just gonna like obviously make you angry.
I felt like it was consistent with the way she's treated pretty much everyone in the show so far. Although at this point it did feel kind of forced to me. Like it didn't feel as natural. Like I would think maybe she would be a little bit more diplomatic in this situation, versus like when she's talking to Elrond or she's talking to people that she knows well.
Yeah, it kind of felt to me.
It didn't really
like
make sense to me.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
It didn't really make sense to me. I don't even mean from the perspective of Galadriel's character, but just that it doesn't seem like any way that a reasonable person would react in that situation. Like, why antagonize all the people who obviously have the capability to get you home or not? Well, I mean, I guess the idea is that she's so offended by, historically how they've kind of cut ties with the elves, but it just seemed like overdone.
Yeah, I imagine that it had to do, they were trying to like really force this whole like stoic, serious, determined nature of hers, but then also they were trying to emphasize quickly the bad blood. I think it was a little clunky, because I definitely think that any elf would have had more poise in that situation. But yeah, she definitely did it. And I forgot to mention, so probably my favorite character at this point is Elendil. Is that his name? Elendil? Elendil. Yeah, I like him. I don't know, maybe it's the actor, but I like him.
Who is that? Which one was that?
That is Isildur's dad. That's the captain of the ship.
Oh, yeah.
The Galadriel and Halbrand.
I liked him.
Yeah, I liked him too.
He kind of gives me the vibe of the actor who played, who's the guy that is the meme? It's like one does not simply...
Sean Bean?
Boromir. Yeah, Sean Bean.
Yes. He kind of gave me that vibe. I don't know if it's his face or just his... Go ahead.
Yeah, he's got good hair. He probably blow dries.
Yeah,
I figure.
It might be the hair. But I don't know if it was like the Gondorian vibe that he gave me, but that was very interesting. So I was reading a little bit about the whole like elf friend thing, his name meaning elf friend, and I guess it sounds like there's a sect of Numenor in the west that is still like, I guess not friendly with the elves because I don't think they interact with them much, but they at least honor the elves and like the relationship they used to have, whereas the rest of Numenor hates them. So I guess I'm getting the vibe that he is one of those people. You would think it would be pretty like at first, who thought that the queen was about to execute him, by the way? Because I thought that's what was about to happen when she mentioned treason and pulled out a sword.
I thought he was going to be banished or he was going to be called upon to kill somebody or something crazy.
Yeah, and so she takes him out to that Hall of Lore or whatever it is and finds the symbol, which I guess should have been pretty apparent for all of us who've played Lord of the Rings Risk a bunch of times. But it was a map of the Southlands that'll eventually turn into Mordor.
Which is interesting because isn't that the symbol that was on the sword that the kid found under the house that was supposed to be a relic from like a long, long time ago? And then you start to wonder, like, why 1,000 years ago did they say, hey, maybe one day Morgoth will be defeated and we'll have to find a new place to go. And maybe it'll be in the southeast in the Ring of Mountains. So let's just make that our sigil.
Well, here's two things. One, to me, it sounds like... So this is all fake, right?
What do you mean it's all fake?
So this
you mean it's not from the book?
Right, this is all made up, right? The sigil thing.
The sigil, yeah.
So to me, I think this is what they're going for. One, yes, it was supposed to be a pretty well thought out plan from a long time ago that if Morgoth ever fell, that Sauron would be his successor and that they would create this like area in Middle Earth where evil could thrive. And it sounds like the inception of that idea was a long time ago. So I mean, if there were people apparently who swore blood oaths in the Southlands to Morgoth a long time ago, and we don't know that the relic is 1,000 years old. It probably was just from the war, right? So
still, why make topography the symbol of your evil nation?
Okay, let's say that I'm Sauron and I'm a fallen angel of Morgoth's, right? I guess there might have been others. I don't really know. You probably do. But let's say that he creates a plan that makes me not only his right-hand man and shows that he trusts me, but that in his fall, I'm going to be his successor. And it's going to be in this area. I'm probably going to be thinking about that a lot, especially if I'm a haughty lord, you know, kind of like Sauron is. Almost said Darth Vader. Kind of like Sauron is. Maybe I say, you know what? I'm thinking about this whole secondary plan a lot, and this is where it's going to happen. So I'm going to create the sigil related to it. And obviously there's some reference to orcs being drawn to the sigil or understanding what it means. And so it's kind of like a symbol, you know. It's a symbol that means something to them.
I get what you're saying. I still think it's a little silly.
Okay. Who do you think, Josh? Who do you think Halbrand is?
Don't they pretty much say that he's the king of the Southlands?
Kind of. They say he's a king. And
a king,
and we don't actually. He does say he's from the Southlands, so we're presuming yes, king of the Southlands. There's actually thought, right? Ben made reference to in our first podcast to Sauron coming, right? There's people who think that the stranger is Sauron.
I don't think that anymore.
I don't think that anymore either. But there's also
at all.
There's also thought that Halbrand could be Sauron. And I don't think it's a strong argument, but it kind of fits with some stuff that Ben was saying. Ben, weren't you saying that you felt like he would be more like clean cut and sleek when he came down and kind of slivery and slimy?
Yeah, and that's how it's portrayed in the show. I just I don't know who he is. I have a hard time imagining how he would be, Sauron. I don't remember exactly how Sauron ended up coming to Numenor, but I'm pretty sure that'd be a spoilers for another day, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't show up on a boat. There's a lot that would be pretty in conflict with how it ends up going in the end.
It probably would. Go ahead.
But maybe they're trying to throw a little wrinkle,
That's
surprise some
That's
people.
what I'm thinking.
don't know.
I would be okay with a semi-lore related like surprise, because the easy answer, which I think will be the answer, and it's just kind of easy, is that he is some sort of king of the Southlands who's going to help rally the troops, right? But they do hint at a sinister nature within him, so I think it would be a really cool wrinkle to, at the end of the season, have him be Sauron. And because,
Well,
go ahead.
Galadriel, her whole purpose in life right now is to find him. And if she's literally this guy, or he's literally this guy who's partnering with her, how crazy would that be?
I would be totally fine with that wrinkle, and I'd be like, that's great, awesome job, that was really clever. Because Ben, doesn't Sauron attempt but when they don't know it's him, to get Galadriel and even Elrond to assist him with this whole rings of power situation, and then it's Celebrimbor who actually ends up helping him? Didn't you reference that?
I know that, obviously Elrond and Galadriel end up with rings. I don't remember that Sauron has any particular contact with them. My suspicion is that Halbrand is going to end up being some sort of captain of Sauron's, sent to kind of infiltrate and influence the direction of events, to eventually bring Sauron to Numenor. That's my suspicion.
That would be an
I mean, any good show has a plot twist, right? So someone is going to be unexpectedly evil.
Yes.
It's just a matter of who.
And they're foreshadowing some plot twists at the moment with Elrond kind of going behind Galadriel's back, and then the Theo thing. Hopefully they have something very like surprising. I think that'd be pretty surprising. I mean, I imagine that he probably has a military background of some sort, but like he whooped those guys' butts. That was and
what did Elrond do behind Galadriel's back?
Convinced her, along with Gil-galad, as they say, that Sauron was not a threat and that the war was won and she should go back to Valinor. They know that Sauron's out there, both of them do, but Gil-galad, is that, why do they say it like that? I want to say Gil-galad. He thinks that, or he says that he has foreseen that Galadriel's involvement in Middle-earth with Sauron would lead to the rise of Sauron.
Oh, right.
So he's trying. That's why he's trying to send her back to to the Undying Lands.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Isildur. What were your initial thoughts or reactions to his first scene on the boat and just his character in general and the actor? When I first saw him, I thought he looked kind of like Trent.
Yeah, tune in for either go back to the first episode or tune in for the next one to see our brother Trent. He actually throws some long hair on him and give him a little more of a tan, and maybe have him work out a little bit, and that very well could have been Isildur. Definitely.
Hey, he's gonna have a tan after his beach vacation.
That's true. Definitely not what I expected. Which I think they did intentionally. I expected more of an Elendil character from Isildur, because obviously he becomes the king of Gondor, right?
Yeah.
They make a reference to it. Elendil makes a reference to it because he talks about how they need to get out of there. They need to get out of Numenor and get to. He said the west, which now that I think about it, could that mean the western Numenor, or is the west Middle Earth?
I don't recall when he said that. The west would not be Middle Earth. Middle Earth is to the east. To the west would be Aman or Valinor. But he may have meant the west of the island, because I believe that he was the Lord of Andunier, is maybe that's how you pronounce it, which is one of the points, essentially one of the cities at one of the points of the Numenorian island. The island is shaped like a star, incidentally. There are kind of like 5 points to it. And I don't know where we are, what port they come into, but I think Elendil's little area was in the west.
Okay.
It would make sense that they came into port in the west because they were coming from the west, land of Aman.
Right. So yeah, I think Isildur would be a good character. They make him very flighty. I mean, I guess he's just got a coming of age situation that has to come. But then obviously he goes his own way with the ring and all that in the end. But yeah.
Well, you can tell they made it clear there's something different about him than the other guys that he's on the boat with. Like, those guys seem like, they're going along with the program. They're into it. he's obviously not. He wants to get out of it.
It's his
For
destiny.
whatever reason. Yep.
His destiny. Ben, was that what is his name? I'm trying to think of the actor who plays Aquaman, but was that guy on the captain on the ship training the cadets? Was that Elros? Was that Elrond's brother?
No.
No? Okay. Because is he dead or
No,
something?
I don't think so. Did you say, are you talking about Jason Momoa?
Yeah. He had long hair and stuff.
Did you think that was Jason Momoa?
No, I just thought he kind of looked like
You're
him.
making a joke.
Yeah, I was making a joke.
No, I don't think that was Elros. Elros was referenced when they went to the Hall of the Scrolls or whatever, and he was on a.
He was on
what are the little things you paint on the walls?
I want to say mural.
A mural.
A mural.
Yeah, he was in the mural.
Yeah, he was on the mural, but Elrond was clearly like the character's face. I thought that guy was the guy who was captain of those ships. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I swear when I saw that, that's what I thought.
I could be wrong, but I think Elros has passed at this point.
Okay.
The ships were pretty cool. Like, that was something we didn't really get a ton of in the regular Lord of the Rings movies. So I don't know if they're going to incorporate that into future episodes. Maybe some sea battles. I don't know, but I thought they did really well with the ships.
Oh, there will be more ships.
Yeah, I imagine, because the Numenorian they're making them out to be like sea people of the sea, or at least there's heavily rely on the sea.
Yeah, ships do not make up much of the Lord of the Rings Third Age narrative, but the sea and the water and mariners. I mean, it's a lot of themes in the Silmarillion, because the elves, many of them, have a particular fondness for the sea, and it plays a large role. So there will be some of that coming up.
The only ships I can think of in the Third Age are the Corsair ships, and then the ships to the Undying Lands. I can't even think of any other ship situations.
I think that's it.
So with that, we'll take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about the Harfoots and the Stranger. Be right back.
All right, storyline number 2 is the Harfoots. We are picking up where we left off with the Stranger. I think Nori is trying to get something from, his name is Sadak or Sardak.
Mm-hmm.
The elder statesman of the Harfoots, trying to get something from his book of prophecy, and because she's trying to get some more information for the Stranger. It ends up getting burned, and the Stranger is revealed to the Harfoots, and they get really angry and almost banish Nori's family, but they don't. But they put him in the back of the caravan, and we get an inkling that people that are left behind are just kind of left. If they fall behind, they're left behind, and they're kept in their hearts, whatever that means. But sometimes bees kill them. And so it looks like Nori's family might get decaravaned, but then the Stranger shows up and is able to help pull their cart. So that was a nice warm ending. So, impressions, you continue to find the Harfoots charming. Are they kind of a boring interlude, or are you a fan?
I was wondering, like, are we going to even see them this episode? So I was excited to see them again. I mean, they're interesting people, just like the hobbits were, because they're so different than any other race in the Lord of the Rings. So I was very glad that they were in it, and I did not find it boring.
They are lighthearted and goofy and kind of cheesy, but I appreciate it because I know that Tolkien made the hobbits the heroes for a reason, and I think that speaks to how he frames morality in his books. And so there's obviously something large destined for the Harfoots, so stick around and I'm sure there'll be something very interesting. I mean, the fact that the Stranger is there is interesting. And you mentioned his papers. I think his papers were papers of pictures of the stars, and she was pulling the page that was the same picture that the Stranger made with the fireflies. So we don't know what that means.
That's right,
but that's interesting. Still unsure of who he is. I mean, it's got to be Gandalf or some other wizard. But I thought that the Left Behind thing was pretty brutal. It's like, I mean, come on, guys. I get that that's like their lifestyle. They have to keep moving, but it's just to let him die. It sounded like that Poppy girl, Nori's friend, like her whole family just like died and they just left them all. Is that, did y'all get that vibe?
Yes, I definitely
missed
got that
but
vibe.
in the summary that I read, I saw that. They all laughed at the guy that got stung to death by bees.
That was a
They
little
thought
cold.
it was hilarious.
Yeah, so in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, there's not a lot that goes on in the Shire. I mean, it's fun, it's welcoming, it's families, it's whatever. I love those parts, but the real plot begins when Bilbo leaves, when Frodo leaves the Shire.
Right.
So when is Nori gonna leave? Like, when is she gonna go out on her adventure that she's so itching to grasp? I think that they're gonna get left behind, and they're going to have to figure out how to survive with this man, the mystery meteor man, and then that's going to somehow tie into, the larger plot. What do y'all think?
It does seem a little bit ironic that, the whole thing about the hobbits in the Third Age is that they're very much homebodies and they don't want to go anywhere. And, Sam Gamgee's never been 500 yards from his door or whatever. And now they're nomadic peoples and they have to keep moving.
Yeah, I imagine they obviously wanted that contrast, but you might could say because of that nomadic type of lifestyle, and then they found the Shire, which is like this oasis of peace, right? That's why they were like, we're never going anywhere again. I like what Josh said. I think that's a good point. We're probably not going to keep up with this caravan for too long. Nori, because they're hinting at it a lot, is probably going to break off with the stranger and maybe her family. And that's where
they must, because the caravan's going to lose its... There's only so much they can do with that.
Right.
I think it's been great to introduce their culture and who the Harfoots are as a tribe and a group and all of that. But I mean, I think it will get boring if they just keep trying to do that.
I have nothing more on the Harfoots.
I will say I do not think that there's any way that the Meteor Man can be evil.
No, I don't think so.
Like, at this point, I agree that the Fireflies were supposed to be a distraction, and I'm sure there will be some kind of explanation for that. But the way that Nori is so attached to this person and how much good that's within her that wants to help, I just think that would be it just wouldn't make sense and if they made that person evil.
I agree. The Fireflies, yeah, we'll get an explanation, but it was meant to throw us off. I think he's going to be good. Okay, well, we're going to move on to our last segment before final thoughts, which is Arondir, who previously in the last episode, he was grabbed by something in the tunnels. We realize that those are orcs. He's dragged into their camp. There's slaves, a lot of humans everywhere. He reunites with his old watch warden, Revion, and then another elf. Medhor was his name. We hear a reference to some sinister, maybe orc captain or something named Adar, but we don't know who that is. And then they staged a rebellion. They end up fighting with a warg and with the other orcs to try to escape. You see that the tree line is, all the area around where they're working is kind of devastated. And then Medhor and Revion end up dying. And at the end, Arondir is kind of tackled, and we see this blurry face of this guy who we know to be Adar. So first, Ben, who do you think Adar is?
I think he'll be some other kind of high captain of Sauron's. I mean, it could be Sauron himself. But
yeah, in my limited knowledge, I thought that was Sauron. Like, I thought they were building it up that like that was.
Yeah, it very well may be. Yeah, I mean, because he looked like a human or an elven type of form, and how many of those ought Sauron to have? Maybe none, and so it certainly may be him.
Right.
As much as I enjoy you saying Maidhor, I'm pretty sure the DH in Tolkien's works takes on like a TH, so like Maethor. I don't remember hearing his name said in the show, but that's my guess.
Well, thank you for your correction.
Someone email me if I'm wrong. But you just keep saying Maidhor.
Okay. Well, Methor. Let's go with that. Yeah, I think possible Sauron. There's this kind of a fun undertone of who is Sauron that they're not really actually talking about, but I think a lot of people outside of the show is talking about. Like, there's no question among the characters of who Sauron is, but there's all these questions among us who Sauron is. I like that. I think that's cleverly done. I think it's possible that he is him, but it's also possible that he's just a high-ranking person. His name, I thought they said a reference to like saying that Sauron had many names in like, and maybe I read this somewhere, and there was an elven name that he was called by, elven word that he was called by, and it sounded kind of like Adar. I thought it started with an A. Anyways, so that's a possibility. I will say that so there was some good action in this sequence where they fought with orcs and they fought with the warg. I'll say that my least favorite CGI portion so far on the show has been the warg. I was pretty disappointed. I understand that they wanted to have a good fight there, but there's a way to do it with a little bit of live action animatronic warg head like they did in the Jackson movies and like they've done in like a lot of Star Wars recent TV series, where they can make a real warg head, have some of it be CGI, but then have the close-up interactions with the characters be with an actual furry head thing or body, because the whole thing was very CGI. I thought they could have done that a little bit better. Josh, what did you think of that?
You're talking about like the wolf type creature.
Yes, he was. As far as I know, he was a warg.
When the thing came out at first, it felt CGI for sure. But then when it showed him close up, it didn't feel like that. It felt more realistic to me. But after the initial kind of introduction of it, it didn't really bother me too much. But it did feel kind of fake at first.
Ben, how did you feel about the tree, how the whole instigation began about the tree? Did you think that was cheesy and kind of silly, or did you think that had a little bit of Tolkien appreciation, since he does seem to have an obsession with nature and songs in the books?
Yes, an obsession. I think that without any context for the casual viewer, it may seem cheesy, but to me, it seemed like a nice reference to Tolkien's appreciation for trees, and also just how the elves really revered nature and trees all the way back to the First Age, and so much of the First Age centers around trees. And as just an aside, we get another tree reference from the first storyline when we're in Numenor, because I think the queen says something about how the white tree is losing its petals. A little bit of background there. So the two great trees, one of which is called Telperion. They were sung into being by Yavanna, essentially the god of nature and growing things, and they were made by Varda, the queen of the stars, to give off a light. One a gold, one of a silver light, and the Kayaquindi, the elves who had beheld the light, they received a special reverence, and they had greater wisdom and kind of a variety of things. And their beauty is sung of, it's referenced a lot, and their light was captured in the Silmarils. So Silmarils are a big deal. They hold the light of the trees. The trees were destroyed by Morgoth, along with Ungoliant, Shelob's ancestor. And but before they were destroyed, Yavanna created a copy of Telperion, the silver tree, and the copy. I'm forgetting the name right now. I actually wrote it down. Let's see. The copy was Galathilion, which didn't give off light, but it looked like the tree, and it was planted in the elven city on the eastern shore of Aman. And from it, a sapling came called Celeborn, shared a name with Galadriel's husband, and Celeborn existed on an island called Tol Eressëa, which has its own story off the coast of Aman that some other elves lived on. And from it descended the sapling that was gifted to the people of Numenor in honor of them fighting alongside the elves, and it was planted in that Numenorian city, and its flourishing seemed to be associated with the flourishing of the kingdom of men, and so we see the white tree of Minas Tirith in the Lord of the Rings, the Jackson films, and so it is a direct descendant of this tree in Numenor, which itself is a reflection of Telperion, one of the great trees that gave light to the world. So a little bit of background there. I thought it was a nice touch, and I'm glad that it's featured.
Very interesting. Yes, lots on trees. In the first episode, didn't we see Ents, like in one of the initial montages? Didn't we see like an old and young Ent? Do you remember that?
When the meteor went across the sky, there was a scene of the Ents.
Yes. Yes, we did see Ents. So that'd be pretty cool if we got a little more in action coming in. Speaking of trees, because he did utilize the tree roots to like kill that warg. Obviously, it wasn't an ant or anything, but very interesting. Josh, do you like Arondir as a character? Just overall, do you think he's a good character?
Yeah, I think he's a really good character. I think his sense of duty and his sense to, fulfill his commitment and fight for good is very strong. And I think he comes off as a very good fighter, tough guy, smart guy. So I think he's really interesting. I enjoy watching him.
I did not realize that Revion, I didn't realize that elf he teamed up with was his Watchwarden. It did not. Maybe it just barely thought about it for a glance, but I did not put that together at first. I really thought
I thought it was a little weird that they ended up in the same spot, like a little bit, because they were leaving to go back.
Right.
Like, how did they get captured?
It seems unlikely because the only reason he got captured was because he went, I guess, further south.
He like went in the tunnels. Yeah.
Right. So who knows how they did? It's possible, maybe as they were leaving, they caught a glimpse of something, or maybe they went looking for him. Remember that he made a reference to the fact that they would come looking for him. So that's kind of a bummer for him, right? Maybe they went looking for him, found one of these holes, and that's how they, ended up getting captured or something.
That's true. I still think it's a little odd. Well, you see at the end when he goes up on the tree, like how vast the network is of what they're trying to do there. But I thought it was a little odd they all ended up still in that same tunnel digging operation.
Sure.
But
I will say
it is.
The orc camp has been my favorite spot so far. Like just kind of the intensity, a sense of dread. I think the orcs are very well done. I share some of the misgivings about the warg. It's not as bad as people online make it out to be, but it's certainly Jackson's warg was better, which is weird 20 years before. But the orcs, very well done, have been a highlight of the show for me so far.
I meant to caveat my warg comment, how I was disappointed with the CGI by saying that the orcs are awesome. Like, they look really good. They make them seem kind of reptilian almost. And there's a good reference to the fact that they cannot go into sunlight, and so they're having to compensate for that with these like hoods. And then you notice that all their tunnels, or wherever they were located in the tunnels, were covered by canvas so that the sun wouldn't reach them. So I thought that was super cool. And they even like made little references to like certain orcs being on like sun duty, like certain orcs would have to go out for a period of time this day, and them complaining about like getting charred up or something like that. I think that was really great.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like the CGI thing with the wolf thing, I don't know how to say that. But I looked past it because everything else was so interesting. And I thought the way they introduced it was interesting. Like, he's kind of in a daze going through. It almost felt like it was a dream. And so you're like, is this even real? But then you realize, oh no, this is real. You know?
No, I did. So. Yeah, I loved everything about the orcs in the camp. The orc was the only issue I had. Okay, well, good. That's Arondir. So
I have one question.
Go ahead.
So what's the deal with the water when they were asking them to drink the water? Why did they do that? Because I know there was like a scene in Lord of the Rings where they asked Meriadoc and to like drink some of their like whatever it was they drank, and it was nasty, but this looked like real water.
That's a good memory.
What they made Merry and Pippin drink was like was some kind of orcish liquor that was supposed to invigorate them. But apparently they do drink water like other creatures. And I think the point here was just to highlight their maliciousness and create this kind of uncertainty for a moment. Like, was this orc going to actually respect them, or was he just going to use it to trick and trap them and be especially cruel? And that's what they did.
Yeah, I think that the drama was created around the fact that it might be poisoned.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
And then he used the tilting up of the head to drink as a slashing opportunity, which at first it looked like a flesh wound, like a glancing blow, but of course, I guess he's got a pretty sharp knife. Yeah. But yeah, that was pretty gruesome. Anyways, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and then we're going to move on to our final thoughts and predictions for the episode. We'll be right back. All right, we are back with a quick final thoughts. Me, Ben, and Josh. Josh, we'll start with your final thoughts. What are you looking forward to most? Do you have any predictions for episode 4?
One final thought I did want to mention. I know we talked about the intro last time, the sand intro, and we talked about we're gonna see how it goes in episode 3. I don't like it. Like, I just think it's very underwhelming. I think the music is amazing, but the whole sand thing, it just doesn't.
It doesn't build anything.
No, it's just like sand moving on the screen. Like, what? I mean, I know it's in different formations and it's got like the evil snake thing that goes through it, and like it's kind of interesting, but the visuals just don't do it for me.
It's like an automated Zen garden.
I think the appreciation I have for it, which I agree, it's not super like, let's get pumped up for this episode, but it emphasizes the trees a lot, which we just heard Ben talk about the Cimmerals, or we heard Ben talk about the trees, and then we've talked about the Cimmerals previously. It's probably some sort of reference to that, which I can appreciate. Agreed about it doesn't really get you pumped up.
And then at the end, when it brings the title up.
We skipped the intro.
Oh,
come
on. Jeez.
It's not good, but you still can't skip it.
Got to watch the thing.
I'm going to skip it every time.
I don't want to hear that.
Okay. Well, other than that, I thought it was really good. I thought it was building, but continued to build the plot, and it was exciting, introducing more characters. As far as predictions go, I think I haven't watched the trailer for the next one, but I know we're going to go back to the dwarves. And I'm sure that's going to involve, potentially, starting that project of building the forge or the tower. So excited to see what all is going to go on there.
Very nice. Ben, final thoughts, predictions. What are you looking forward to?
My biggest issue is that I wasn't really left with any huge sense of kind of apprehension at the end. I don't feel like I was really left hanging. There's nothing I'm anticipating that much, except I want to know who Adar is.
That's they left you on a cliffhanger. I mean, there's a cliffhanger there.
Yeah, but the other storylines, like, I don't know. I can't say that I'm particularly hooked with any of them yet. They're all fine, but I do want to know who Adar is. So I'm hoping they can, they've set the groundwork for some of these characters. I'm hoping they can kind of build a little bit, build towards some kind of climax for this season as we get towards episodes 5, 6.
Do y'all think that we're going to see Sauron in the first season? Like, do you think it's going to be at the very end that we see him, or is it going to be
I think
sooner?
we'll have to see him in some form, yeah.
I think to have a good climax for the first, I think it's going to be one of the final things we get is to either see him or figure out who he is. And I don't think he's going to be the big scary that everybody is imagining. I think that comes late. It's going to come in later seasons. I think we're going to find out that he is effectively a person there, is what I think. But final thoughts on this one. I really liked it still. Still came away very much appreciating it. I think they've set some really good building blocks to move towards some good things at the end of the season. I mean, there's some things that could have been done way worse, which is good. So I very much appreciate it. I think they've introduced some really good characters, and I'm starting to enjoy them. So, yeah, I am looking forward to it. On that, we will end our second episode reacting to The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. We will come back soon to react to the 4th episode. We appreciate everybody listening. We are now live on all podcast platforms that I can think of. So check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Check out our YouTube channel. We are Nerds After Dark. And we would appreciate any rating that you wanted to give us on any of those platforms, or a subscription. That's very helpful to us. But otherwise, we will catch you next time. Thank you.